As a sequel to the last video I made, where I was talking about if the Plab UKMLA pathway is still a worthy journey to take in 2025, I have decided to make this video where I'm going to be talking about the pathways, the alternative pathways that you can actually consider if you are an IMG doctor hoping to relocate to practice in another country, especially in the Western, countries. So because I really do not just want to okay, Plab is no longer something you want to venture into, or maybe I kept talking about to consider alternative pathways. So today I'm going to be talking about those a few of those alternative pathways. And from my research, I actually found out that there are so many countries that you can actually relocate to as an IMG doctor. However, language is one of the main limiting factors, and that's why in this video today I'm going to be focusing on the English speaking countries, because those ones are easier for IMGs to get into, especially if you're from a country where you had your medical training in English language. So let's just get right into the video. If this is something that interests you, then come along with me today. Hello, my name is Blessing and I am a doctor currently practicing in the UK, and you already know on this channel I create content about health and wellness. I also share about my journey as a doctor practicing in the UK, and also I talk about life as an immigrant generally living in the UK. So if you are happy to become a part of this community, why don't you tap on that subscribe icon, become a part of us, and let's go on this journey together and build a very strong community here on YouTube. Okay, so let's just jump right into the video. Now, I think this is the point where I should actually say a disclaimer that I have actually researched a lot in order to get this information that I am putting out in this video today. However, I may still not be entirely correct because a lot might have changed between the time I got information and even now, and even between now and when somebody who wants to start the process and when you're going to be starting the process, a lot might have also changed. So this information is not for you to, is more like to just give you a guidance to have an idea of, oh, I could consider this, I could consider this, but then the onus still lies on you to properly investigate every pathway in details. And I am actually hoping that if I find colleagues who might be willing, who have taken these various pathways and might be willing to actually come tell us all about it on this platform, that would be fantastic. I will definitely work towards getting them, but nothing is guaranteed. But then if I am able to, then they would definitely be here to give more guidance about it. But all of this information is just based on my own personal research, and so you might still have to do even your own more detailed research if you are considering taking any of these pathways. Okay, so I said that there are actually so many countries that you as an IMG doctor can consider relocating into. Like if you don't want to take the UKMLA or Plab pathway, there are actually some alternative countries that you can consider going to. And even if you have taken your UK and Plab, there are actually some of these countries where that might actually come handy and useful in the process of registering to become a medical doctor. And so to start with, I'm going to be starting with the United States for you to come in and practice fully as a doctor, not just for a temporary post. I think the major pathway is actually the exams pathway, sitting for your USMLE step 1, 2 CK and 3, and then get matched into the residency program, go ahead with your residency and get your license. So I think that's the major pathway for the US. So if you're considering relocating to the US, then that's the path that you're likely going to have to take. I am actually hoping that I'll be able to invite somebody who has recently taken this path to actually come, give a full detail of what it entails, the cost of the exams, the duration, how long it took from the beginning of the exam to when that person got matched, just to tell us all that we need to know about the USMLA pathway. Going over to the next country is Australia. So for the Australian pathway, I actually realized that a lot of IMGs have recently moved to Australia, and even currently even doctors from the UK are relocating to Australia to actually practice. So for an IMG, there are actually different pathways, but then for an IMG there are majorly 3 pathways. So we have the standard pathway. Now, what happens in a standard pathway is that you come in, you write the Australian Medical Council exams, the CAT MCQ and the clinical part of the exam, and after that you go through a supervised training of 12 months, and then you get into the health system and you continue to practice. Now, the other part of it is what we call the competent authority pathway. So this is more like for people who trained in some countries that the Australian government actually recognizes, and this is based on the fact that they think that these countries have similar healthcare, like they have similar healthcare system with these countries, and so doctors from those countries can easily adjust into their own healthcare system. And so this includes UK, Canada, US, New Zealand, and Republic of Ireland. So any doctor who has a medical training, who had medical training in any of these countries, can actually go to Australia, and they don't have to write the exams. All they just have to do is after 12 months of supervised training, and voila, they are into the system. However, for an IMG who did not train in any of these 5 countries, there's actually a way you can still be able to get in through this competent pathway, and that is through your Plab 1 and Plab 2 exams. So if you have done your Plab 1, your Plab 2 exam, and you have had 12 months of supervised training in any of these 5 countries, then you can actually skip the exams part, and all you just have to do is have 12 months of supervised training in Australia, and you get into the health system. So that is where your Plab 1 and Plab 2 can actually come handy. But then it's only useful if you have had 12 months of supervised training in any of these countries. So maybe you're in the UK and you're just tired of the whole shit going on in the UK, and you just want to go to somewhere, you just want to go somewhere else, then you can actually consider this pathway for Australia. So the third one is the New Zealand pathway. Now, if you're considering going into New Zealand, there are actually various pathways, but then for an IMG, I'm going to be talking about 2 major pathways really. So we have the examination pathways, which is like, okay, you just want to start the journey, so you can either sit for the New Zealand registration exam, and then you get into an internship training, and then do your PGY1, PGY2, and then get your full license, and then you continue to practice. Or if you have passed your Plab 1 and 2 in the last 5 years, you can also qualify for this internship role. And so this actually gets you into like like what we call housemanship, like your FY1. And so you do that, you do your FY2, and then you get your full registration, and then you continue. So so it means that if you have passed Plab 1 and 2 in the last 5 years, you don't need to do the New Zealand registration exam. Now, the other pathway for IMGs in terms of exam is if you have actually passed your Plab 1 and 2 and you have practiced for 12 months, like you've had 12 months of supervised training in some countries that I'm going to be mentioning later on, and this is that you are actually going to also be considered, like for this pathway. So if you have practiced like for 12 months in the UK, then you can actually get your full license. You have passed your Plab 1, Plab 2, you have practiced in the UK for like 12 months, then you can actually get into the New Zealand, you can actually get New Zealand full registration, and then you continue with your practice. Then there is also the second pathway, which is they call it comparable health system. So it means that if you have like your medical degree from any of these countries, there are 26 countries that the New Zealand government actually recognizes that, okay, these people, they have similar health system to us. And so if you actually had like your medical training in any of these countries, then you can actually come into the New Zealand. You don't have to write the exams. However, there are some other criteria that you also have to meet in addition to this, which includes your fitness to practice. You must have been in clinical practice for about 33 months in the last 48 months, and that role you must have been working in that role at least 20 hours per week, and that role should be similar to the proposed role that you are considering to take up in New Zealand. So if you have been able to provide evidence to support all of this, then you don't need to take the exams pathway. You can actually get into. So I'm going to be leaving the list of the countries here on the screen so that you can actually see all of those countries. So pathways. But then if you don't also meet all the criteria, then you definitely know that you have to, take that pathway. There's actually a third pathway for Australia and New Zealand, which actually are quite similar, is the specialist pathway. So this is more like you have become a specialist in any of these countries. So for Australia, we mean any of those 5 countries: UK, Canada, US, New Zealand, and Republic of Ireland. While for New Zealand, in any of these 26 countries, and you are becoming a specialist, then you can easily come in, and so you're going to be reviewed by the various colleges of, like the of your specialty, the specialty you actually want to practice in. So they are going to have to be the one to review, you know, your competencies and all of that, and then you can get into the training. I think I noticed generally that it's easier for specialists to actually move across these countries, except for like places like the US. You know, like if you have trained in the UK, it's easier for you to go to, you know, like New Zealand, to move to Ireland, to move to Australia. It's actually easier as a specialist compared to a non-trained doctor or a non-specialist. Okay, so the fourth pathway that we are considering is Ireland. So for Ireland, they actually have like 3 pathways. So they have the recognized internship pathway. So this is more like if you had your internship in any of these countries that I'm going to be listing, then it means that you can actually come in and start practicing in Ireland. And I think we have Australia, UK, New Zealand, South Africa, Pakistan, Malta, Malaysia, and Sudan. So if you actually trained in any of these countries and had, you know, you had like a medical training and your internship in those countries, then you can easily come into Ireland to actually further your practice. And the other pathway, let's say you're not from any of these countries, you did not have your medical training in any of these countries, and so the other pathway you can consider is the exams pathway. So majorly there are like 2 exams, the Press 2 and Press 3. There is no Press 1. So but the good thing here is if you've actually done your Plab 1, then you can actually skip the Press 2 step and move over to the Press 3. So the Press 2 is like the theoretical knowledge exam, while the Press 3 is like the clinical assessment part of the exam. So if you have passed your Plab 1, then you don't need to do Press 2. All you just have to do is you skip to the next process, which is your Press 3, and then you do your Press 3, and then you come into an internship program in Ireland. So the other pathway that you can actually consider is the higher qualification pathway. So for example, if you have gotten like higher qualifications like MRCP, MRCS in maybe like a place like the UK, that is going to be acceptable and considered in the, like, for you to come into the Irish medical pathway. So if you have actually passed all of these exams, maybe your MRCP 1 and 2, and it's looking like, okay, I don't think I want to come to the UK, then this is actually an alternative that you can actually consider. But if you're not from any of these countries that I've mentioned, then you have to, you know, write all of the exam to get into their medical practice. The last one I'm going to be talking about is Canada. Now, I think for Canada, majorly, a lot of things about Canada are quite similar to the US. So for Canada, majorly, for you to get into their system as an IMG is through their exams. So you have to sit for the Medical Council qualifying exams, NCCQE 1, and then you can proceed to write the National Assessment, you know, collaboration exam. They call it NAC. So based on your performance, then you can go into residency training. So it's more like if you have passed this exam, then you're going to be matched into residency, and then you can start your residency program, and then you continue that way. And the other pathway is actually what we call the practice ready assessment program. So this is more like for IMGs who have completed residency training in some other countries. So let's say you have completed your residency training like in a place like the UK, and then you want to relocate to Canada. This is actually a pathway that you can consider taking. However, one thing that is very important in the whole process for Canada is that language test or language proficiency is very important. So you must be able to prove that you can speak either English or French. And also because the health system is divided, like each territory, they have territories, and each of these territories have their own medical regulation authority. So before you even start the process, you have to investigate what territory are you considering practicing in, and then also find out what works in this territory, because it's actually not all the territories that does this practice ready assessment program. No, it's actually I think there are just about 9 territories. I'm going to be putting the list here on the screen that actually does this pathway. So you also have to consider that, you know. So that's why, just like I said before, you have to research thoroughly into any of this process if you're going to be taking any of these routes. And I think in summary, I also want to add that it's actually easier if you're like, you have not started anything, like maybe you're just leaving medical school and is like, okay, what pathway do I have to consider? I think it's actually better if you have not started anything, then you can actually sit down, research all of these pathways, consider the pros and cons, maybe the financial involvement, you know, what works in all of those countries, you know, everything that is important to you in terms of your career, you know, in any of these countries. You can compare and contrast, see, okay, is this easier for me? How about the exams? I know that for Canada residency program is quite competitive, and even the exams, a lot of people always come out and say that no, that the exam is not so straightforward. Like the exam is not usually so easy, and so all of those things are things that you can actually consider. And you know, when you have been able to establish all of those things, then you can know where exactly you are going to. But the whole summary of this video is that UK is not the only country that you can actually relocate to as an IMG, and like there are so many options for you, and this is just for the English speaking countries. If you actually want me to do a video, I could also do a video about the non-English speaking countries. Like there are so many countries in Europe that actually are open to IMGs, but language is a major barrier. We talk about Germany, France, Italy, Switzerland, Poland. All of those countries are open to IMG, but the language requirement is a problem. Like you must be proficient in their language for you to be able to start even the process at all. So that could be a major limiting factor for a lot of people, and that might be discouraging. But eventually you might be somebody, maybe you're already learning French somewhere, or learning how to speak Italian, or maybe you're already learning German, or it might actually be something you want to consider. So this is how I'm going to be ending this video. I hope you were able to learn a few things or two. So this is just me coming here to put out this information, then you can research further and then come up with what exactly you want to do if you're not going to be taking the UK pathway, or if the UK pathway is no longer looking like what you want to pursue, or if you are struggling to actually get into the UK health system. Okay, so till I see you guys again, please don't forget to like, to comment, to share, and also subscribe to this channel. Until I see you again, take care. Bye.